busy earning. You can't get enough. You think that all your time is you. Too busy earning. You can't get enough. Just busy earning.
Good morning, everybody. It's RT here with Hxro Labs on Friday morning. It is the 23rd, and just finding it up early today. You know, it's Friday. Sometimes that later stream is like, hey, you're on your weekend. Oh, no, you're not. So I thought we'll try it this morning instead. See if we can free us all up for a little bit of weekend frivolities. However, you know, it's an odd time. So if you guys couldn't make it today and you're watching this later and you're like, damn you, RT, I had a schedule. Well, I apologize. It is what it is. It's the summer doldrums. Gonna keep it real. Some interesting things coming up in the market. Obviously, we had Bitcoin sweeping the big old lows on the daily line chart. We'll take a look at that. Reclaimed 32K, which to me, I mean, just looks really strong. And I think there's a ton of disbelief going on right now where it's like, oh, this rally is going to end like all the others, which it might. And I'll show you where I am going to be hunting for some long exposure, more long exposure, I should say. I've already got some. That would be on a pullback. And what would that pullback mean? You know, when should I be worried that I am wrong? Which happens a lot, part of the game. You know, the key is to lose $1 when you're wrong and make $3 or more when you're right. And if you can do that and flip a coin on being right and wrong, you end up profitable. And that's what most people don't understand about trading. They think it's all about being right. It's really not. It's just about managing your downside when you're not. The best traders I know fuck up all the time. They just fuck up small and then they win big. And one of the things I struggle with is actually the other side of it, letting my winners run. I'd say I'm on point enough to do even better than I am. And oftentimes I lose confidence in a trade, or I've already made a good amount. So I'm like, oh, that's already, you know, I want to lock that in. So if anything, I have that to work on. I'm good at cutting losers. I'm really good at cutting losers. Letting my winners run is something that I struggled with earlier this year. And that's something that I'm, you know, as a trader, that's something I got to work on. Cutting losers to me is easy. I'm like, oh, this sucks. I'm out. And I guess sometimes you get a winner and you're worried it's going to turn into a loser or whatever, and, you know, trailing TPs. We'll get into that. And then I did something this morning that I've been working towards for a little while. It's not that big, but I picked up some CVX and some CRV. You know, I decided to take my first dabble into those two. I know Messi and a few other people I know have been talking about them. You know, Messi's calling for new lows. He's like, you bought the top. We'll see. But I averaged in last night. I took my first bite, and I'm staking both of them. I just keep hearing about them enough. And, you know, generally staking things for any amount of APY, you know, 40%, 30%, 20%, it's not really worth it in this kind of volatile market, because your downside risk on a single staking asset, if you think it's just going to stake and, you know, inflate and draw down, I just don't generally do that. But if I'm going to, the time I like to do it is when prices are just really depressed and at the bottom. Because, of course, then you're on rocket fuel. Potentially, you can ride some upside in price as well as your APY. And I need that potential to be there for me to take this kind of stuff seriously. So I've heard enough about it. I think, you know, I don't even know fully how Curve and all that stuff works, except for that they've got a nice fat TVL. And they're giving out some of those rewards to people that, you know, put a little faith into that. So I did pick some up last night. Fozzie helped me through, got me into the Discord, and I asked some questions, and yeah. So let's get after it today. It's good to see you guys here. The early risers, we've got Kevin and Martinez and Picambier. I hope I got that right. Tom Welsh, good to see you, brother. And Schneider, Joseph, and Spinoza. Good morning, everyone. I don't know. I kind of like the morning sesh. Another thing I did this week that has been long overdue, and I think is going to be really good return on investment, is I finished my first week with a personal trainer. And I should give them a shout out. It's like Uber Eats of personal training. It's fithouse.io. It's like fit, H-A-U-Z or Z.io, Fithouse. And this guy just shows up at my house at like 5:45 a.m. and we get to pumping. I roll out of bed 5 minutes before. It's the dream. And we're doing Monday, Wednesday, Fridays at 5:45 a.m. So I'm getting back on the goddamn horse. And, you know, I have a Peloton, which I thought would be enough. But the thing I know about myself is that I have trouble getting it going in the mornings solo. You know, I had a gym partner before COVID. We crushed it at the gym every morning. But without him to pressure me to get there or to, you know, hold me accountable, I struggled. So, you know, it's $60 a session. And, you know, on a monthly basis, although it's a good amount of money. But you know what? As a trader, I think, or I should say I know, that that's going to bring up all of my abilities, you know, focus, discipline, sleep cycles, all that good shit. And I think that I'll make that back in whatever my P&L, like, you know, returns, equity curve, whatever. I think that's going to be a no-brainer expense. So let's go over to the screens. And, you know, so I'm excited about that. When I'm on the horse, so to speak, when I'm, you know, crushing it at the gym, when I'm in shape, when I'm waking up early, I just feel so good in everything else I do. And I tend to just, you know, more discipline, follow the plan better. Like all my trading is better too. So I'm only a week in. Don't want to get too far ahead of myself. But the fact that this guy's coming to my house, it's like, well, what am I going to sleep in? I mean, he's going to whip my ass. So it's a good vibe. It is hard to make money trading right now with floppy cocks. And with a name like that, I have no doubt you're all in on these memes and the JPEGs. You know what's going on with that. Wanted to buy CVX for a long time too. JPEG's just too much fun. Yeah, I have not bought one JPEG. I think I've got my eyes on a certain project that I'd like to just ape into some of their NFTs when they go live at the end of the month. Hot as fuck in the med. Nice. I kind of miss you guys. Like, I don't have my little camera on in the bottom, but I am here. I should reinsert that. There's a few layers to it. I don't think I'll waste the time on stream today, but for whatever reason, this layout file doesn't have it. I don't know why. So let's take a look at the market. Let's get back to the 4 hour. It's kind of what I've been, you know, prioritizing as far as time frame through this range. And for what it's worth, this looks really good. Now, is this not a bull market? You know, it's still this kind of consolidation-y, you know, sideways and down. This is an impulse back up, you know, trending down. However, we did something significant this week, which I don't really want to sleep on. And, you know, like with any trend, the earlier you can spot it, the more opportunity you have and the less downside risk, right? For example, if I'm like, you know, I'm going to buy up here at 35, if we reclaim it, well, we're still not out of the woods there, right? We're sweeping highs. Maybe we pivot there. Maybe we hit range EQ. So there is no perfect way to get back into this where you just avoid risk. So the way I trade, as you guys know, is a lot of these reload zones, these bands, sort of catching the end of an up move and trying to trade it back down to get the bottom of the down move and back up. And that comes with its fair share of risks. Like when I bought the range lows confluent with this 702 last week and got stopped out. And then I thought, I'm going to have to chill. We just lost all these range lows. And despite my best efforts to lay a tiny, to get some leverage right here, and then I canceled it right before I ran to dinner because I was like, ooh, I don't know, this looks sketchy and I want to stare at it unless, or I'm just going to cancel. And then when I got back from dinner, it was up a couple $100 and I left it. Ooh, womp womp, poor me. The idea being, though, if we are now ready to range up and grab all this liquidity, I want to be on that train. And I don't want to join that train up here. I don't want to be wondering if I have to buy range highs because we're going to go to 50. All that those decisions are much harder. So I'm looking at this very eagerly. I picked some up, admittedly, sort of just spot what we pulled up here to this trend line, and I set like a buy stop the other day, and I just said, fuck it. If we go higher than that right away, I just want my spot back. I get the cash in Binance that I sold here because of whatever. So yeah, a little chop there. And that's part of the game. And, the other thing is like, what am I going to long here, get stopped out, long here, get stopped out, and then like if I'm going to take a shot or two at trying to catch this reload zone that we range back up, I can't quit after the second or third. I need to size accordingly so I can afford to take a couple shots. And one of my long-term sort of Achilles heel is, having a good idea, but maybe acting on it too early. One of the things I've learned though, is to just really size down, like really, really, because you don't want to lose your lunch here and lose all flavor for the risk. And then your idea comes to fruition or you're, we're going to range higher and you're like, oh, I'm so butthurt. I can't trade that. So I really sized down along the way down, less than 1%. And yeah, so for what it's worth, that was an important piece of being able to still play a little bit aggressively down here. Now, I still like this if I'm going to take on any leverage. I really, I thought about it last night. Let me see if I can find my pennant. It might be on my Binance chart, which I'm not going to share. Where is it? Bin thoughts. Oh yeah, here we go. Let me get that pennant out. I'll drag it over to this screen here. There. And I think it was a 15-minute. So this is sort of my day trade mode yesterday, what I was looking at. Get the stream back up over here. Okay. So let's go back to where I was sitting yesterday. Sitting here, trying my best not to overtrade, working on a few other things, and I just decided, look, come up here. We've set this pennant right here. Where I say, okay, we got candle body closes on the 15-minute. I'll mark that. And there was a trade here that I was looking at. I did chicken shit out of it right before it filled, actually, and then was a little sad and then was a little happy. But basically, I was just, there's two things to look at here. And this is probably a conversation that we should have too, which is like over-analysis, right? On the one chart, the 4 hour, I had this SR flip, right? I'm like, okay, resistance, resistance, resistance. And then we're consolidating under this resistance, right? We had this big wick up through the talk with Elon earlier in the week, and then it dumped. Well, then we just pushed right back up into this level. And I just thought, damn, that everyone's in this kind of disbelief phase right now. I say everyone loosely. It's a bullshit term, but there is a sense of epic disbelief right around here where it's like, no, we're definitely down. We're definitely down. People sitting in stables, so convinced they're going to get their mid-20s. They might. I'm not as convinced. But that's this vibe, right? That it's like, I just can't, they're so butthurt. They're like, I can't long. I can't even dream about longing. Very similar to what you see up here when anyone who's thinking short is an idiot. Mania, extreme greed, right? We're going to go back over here and talk about these emotions. Fear and greed index is real. I love this thing. You can see it. They measure it with volatility, momentum, social media, surveys, blah, blah, blah. When you're in extreme greed, people can't even see the other side of the coin. Coinbase listing. Was that this one? I think it was up here. It's just like, you'd be an idiot to think this is a top. Well, whoever said it was, nailed it. Complacency shoulder, right? You're an idiot. And then down here, it's like, you're a genius. Well, I don't need to be a genius. I don't care to be. But when I get my idea to be thinking long after this quick reclaim of the range lows, I mean, every reason to puke here. There was nothing holding this thing up as far as like sentiment or retail or whatever. Everyone was willing to sell their bags here, and no one showed up. Actually, buyers showed up, and they pushed it back in. So I think, for what it's worth, that suggests signs of exhaustion. It also happens to fit my favorite trade setup. When you get a strong impulse after a long down move, and then you trickle back down into the reload zone, and then that's where you start getting aggressive. And I just did that a little too early, so I missed the ultimate one, which is fine. So all that to say, when I see people sliding up into my DMs, into my replies, or wherever, other traders I work with, and they're just like, no, we're waiting for 20s. This rally's going to end like the others. I don't really listen to it. If anything, I think that's actually good. I'm like, perfect, because if the whole world was sitting here saying this is a great long, I'd be a little uncomfortable. Yeah, a lot of conjecture in that whole rant. But let's just look at what I was seeing yesterday, which was we had this SR flip. So as we came down into this, I'm almost like on a 4-hour level. I don't really want to lose that. Meanwhile, I was hoping for some fib pong where you get up into here, get that short reload, draw it down into this pennant. This is where I had my longs, as you can see from all these little alerts. Did not get filled. And then we took off last night, and the Asian session put in a nice little swing failure pattern. And I say nice, it's not really a good thing, but basically we're price trying to go up. Oh, actually, no, we're just sweeping the highs, loading up our shorts, and then we're going to dump it. And that's what happened overnight. So, now these bids, they don't look so sexy, right? Pen it down into the bids and then breakout as I had written. Great. Breakout, get rejected and come back down here. That's not great. I don't want to be long on that. So I have canceled my long exposure, my long leverage bids here, because if we come back down into that, maybe it's a good bounce and it was a great entry, but it's not a setup. It's not something I'm trading. So we just have to kind of plug along and wait for the next setup. That was sort of yesterday's idea. Right now, I think probably the better time frame to look at is this 4-hour. And again, it looks strong. You can find some sense of weakness if you zoom into the 1-hour. This has me a little bit, heading into the weekend. Are we going to see a scam pump up or down? Who knows? I don't know. We've been doing actually pretty well on the weekends lately. It's a lot of it's almost just like fade whatever the weekend is. So it's a downtrend. The weekends would bump up and then we dump more. Either way, we've got bearish divergence forming across the 1-hour on a few different indicators. So at the same time, I don't want to long this SR, even though it's, if you're, where are you going to risk to? Risk to here, I guess. There's something there. But I have spot exposure. I'm long on Bitcoin. So if I'm going to try to add to that, I'm probably going to be waiting for drawing down into this. And here's your range lows. So somebody yesterday, they said, yeah, I'm in 3 paid groups and they're all setting signals to go long at 31.5 and 31. Okay. So there's, that's not to be unexpected. I think there's a ton of people that are like, hey, once we reclaim the range lows, I'll just long the range lows. That makes me wonder if we'll even get it. And if we do, and it gets squeezed and they get stopped out and then we lose that level, I'm right back to oh God, okay, here comes the final puke, quote unquote final, hopefully. Point is, I think wicks below range lows here are maximum opportunity for minimal risk. It's not going to be easy trading. I mean, this is a big box. It's like a 1K, and I don't even want to see most of this get hit. But we get the trend line. We've got some local reload zones. So this whole area is something I'm watching heavily for longs. And I'm making that plan now so that if and when we do get there, big if, big when, I don't go oh, I'm suddenly bearish. I have to remind myself that objectively, when I look at this chart, it looks, it looks like it's formed at the beginning of a pretty good reversal, the one I've been waiting for. So when we get into here, I have to stay greedy. And if we lose that, well, I can go back to, risk off. And, and the gross thing is no matter what I do, I could just be wrong. I'd be whoa, call him. RT's back to risk off. Rah! There's no perfect way. But this is what I'm thinking. This is the plan I have. And that's how I wanted to kind of open the show today with a quick look at Bitcoin. The Rune hacker I thought he's I tweeted out as a gray hat, question mark. White hat hackers typically will go and look for exploits. If they find them, they'll steal all the funds simply so that no one else can steal them, and then they'll go and give them back. Maybe even hold off a little fee. Black hat, obviously hackers going after everything they can. It's the evil hat. And I thought this guy was a little bit gray. He's like, I could have taken all your shit, but I'm only going to take 8 million. You guys shouldn't have rushed. Don't be stupid. It was pretty good. And, he made a good point. I mean, he's like, guys, you could have been completely robbed blind with the thing I just found. Yeah. Someone has power to remove holding of Eddie account. They're not realizing my message. Something wrong. I don't know what's going on with Eddie Seller. I agree. Everyone thinks this looks crazy and obvious. We need to dump one last time. Yeah, that's the thing, John. I mean, I don't want to get too far into the mud with commentary like, oh, everyone thinks this, so this should happen. Everyone thinks that, so that should happen. I can't trade off that consistently over time. I mean, it's really fun for discussions, and I talk about it, in chats and be like, everyone thinks this and that. I don't know if I can. What am I going to have, like a setup in my trade plan that's like, when everyone, how do you quantify that, thinks this, I'll do that. But I agree. The sentiment I'm seeing from a lot of people, like the whole world, right? You talk to anybody during this downtrend who's like, I'm bidding 28. Oh, I'm going to bid 27. I'm going to bid 24. Nah, we're going to 20. I'm going to bid 20. And all I can think is it's kind of like people at 65K saying like, we're going to 100. We're going to 100. It's almost just too crowded. I don't know. I'm not trading based off that, but I do find the psychology fascinating. And if I can find a strong enough signal in that, kind of like I was saying on Wednesday, like when I almost gave up here, like as being the bull through this, thinking like, yeah, this is like a short, like squeeze, whatever, or long squeeze. Like, through this, I just thought I was feeling the range back up. I was leaning that way and not quite ready to put a fork in it for like a 2-year bear market, like a lot of people were. And there's cases to be made for that, but I'm not in that camp. But when I got below this range and we were sitting down here, I was in a bad mood. I had kind of given up on that thesis. It finally got me. And I sat there for a minute and reflected on it. I was like, oh, shit. Like, is this the signal? Like, am I casually just selling off some alt bags that I had very little conviction in here? And we just have like a day of people quietly just puking out their positions, and alts were just like into a little bit of a capitulation. Not quite with volume in that, but... And that's when I started looking for that long there. I said, fuck it. I can punt one more. So yeah, I'm kicking myself that I didn't stick to that gun because it would have been God tier. But, in that sense, I don't look to the sentiment too much. But I am seeing a ton. And like in a weird dark way, like I almost want to see it, being the guy who stuck to my guns through this, who's been feeling like, we're going to squeeze up. Ultimately, it's because of this. I just don't think, just like when you have, a www breakout in the market, and then you retest, so call me a bulltard or call me stupid, but like, are we just going to have this big rip roaring bull, have a big breakdown on the weekly and never test it, never have that argument, never have that debate? It doesn't make sense to me. I don't see it very often, hardly anywhere. We saw it, and then the one case for that I'm like, oh shit, well, what if we had that debate, but it was up here? What if this was our M-top breakdown, that was our retest, and we are off to the races? Like that sits in the back of my mind. But generally speaking, nothing goes straight down. We got the old, well, some things go straight down. Let's not be too rash now. But we've talked about this before. I'm going to take a look here at the MA, moving average, 200. I haven't found a case in Bitcoin's history where, it's moving averages, right? So they always get their retest eventually because they track price. So just like on the way up, I was saying, let's watch that 20-week moving average, and that's maybe an interesting buy opportunity for the next people that want to FOMO in. Well, on the way down, my thesis was basically that any Bitcoin I buy in these low 30s, I can sell for a higher price when it makes contact with this 200 someday. Because for this to get below that price of my low 30s buys, that would take till like the end of the year, I think, depending how quickly, we went down. So that alone, I was just like, the physics of the market, we just need to bounce, rally, squeeze, all that. Okay, kind of rambling here today, but hope that all makes sense, guys. The idea being that I started off basically saying, yeah, I kind of want to see it. Just like that dark part of my personality at the top, and people are telling me to have fun staying poor, and I'm paying myself, and I'm taking a little profit, and I'm being cautious, and I'm preaching. I wasn't preaching like this is the top, pull out. I was just more like, like it's extreme greed. Like, don't go mortgaging the house. Like, take profit, pay yourself. Preaching that all last year. Definitely preached it too early, and we'll keep talking about it. And so there's this kind of sick satisfaction when those guys that are like, reply guys that are like, have fun staying poor, you wretched pleb. And then like now they're just like not online. I don't wish death or evilness upon anyone, but there is that kind of sixth sense of like, oh, well, tried. And I feel like that might go the other way here, where we just keep squeezing, rallying. And there's a lot of just, there's a lot of FOMO baked in here. I think there's a lot of people in stables that will have a price that they're willing to pay to get back in, even just on the way back up to this retest, which is actually where I'll probably start getting a little bit cautious and bearish again. So I drew this up for the newsletter this week, 50-50 Gann target, taking back half the move and half the time. We've talked about that on stream a few times. It's pretty fucking cool. If you go play with that kind of idea, it's not everywhere. Obviously, if it worked every time, we'd all use it, and it wouldn't work every time. But it's a spooky kind of thing. And we talked about it on stream last week, so I won't go into it. But you can check that out. I actually featured this segment in the newsletter this week, heroLabs.io. So you can click through there, and the exact timestamp of when I talked about it is in there. So you can check that out if you haven't already. But it's basically just this idea that, kind of like what we know, like physics, right? You drop a tennis ball, it bounces up to the same height, like a halfway up kind of thing. And you get that in price sometimes of assets. And then you get the half of that, and the half of that, and the half of that, like whatever. So I've seen it play out on Bitcoin after the 2017 bull run. In 2019, the highs we made were the exact 50-50 level, and it was like almost exactly the time within days. And then we did another half, and then we did another half. And after that, I just said, okay, this is cool. I'm going to watch for that. So I think we might see something like that. It would be totally fucking normal. It would catch everyone offside, which is also totally fucking normal. And I don't want to decide to buy into that somewhere through here when the risk is way higher. I am happy to say, okay, I was wrong for not getting long here. I missed the first 2K of the move, but I'm willing to put some risk back on the table in case we get that whole thing. Now, I learned something new yesterday. I made a point today. I said, okay, I want to talk about this on stream. Cold-blooded shill, I think, on Twitter. I feel like he's from the UK, but who knows? But I learned something new from him. I posted this in like CryptoDog's replies. I said, the daily RSI says, yes, please. Now, the most important thing about this chart to me is this downtrend. I mean, it's kind of crazy. We peaked in January. So like the overbought momentum in the market actually peaked back in January, which is kind of insane if you think about it. And this is one of the reasons I was a little uncomfortable during this bull, and probably why I took so much profit in February before the big, mania. And that's because the momentum was just fucking coming out of the market. We were making new highs on ETH and BTC on lower volume and rolling MACDs and rolling RSIs. But look at this. This is not something to ignore. I think RSI often will lead price and sometimes can give really nice signals. And I don't trade only off of this, but it's one thing and it's on the daily. And I just think if this is what, if we got that run to 65K on a downtrending RSI, what might we do if that trend reverses? I feel like that would be a strong signal. Now, here's what I learned yesterday, which was a really nice lesson to add into my trade journal. TRI is where I learned all my technicals. They don't actually have a module on RSI. So this was a little bit of self-taught and some other guys over there that we talk about, but it wasn't officially taught to me. Now, the default length is 14. In other words, the data that the RSI spits out is based on the previous 14 candles. So that 15th candle drops out of the data set. And so what Cold-Blooded Schiller pointed out to me was that after 14 days, the data is not really relevant. So if you want to have a bullish divergence, stretching it like this is invalid. And so that's kind of cool. I learned that. And that makes sense. And then, you can find these. There are bullish divergences, bearish and whatever. You just have to find them like here, like really tight. You say, okay, like price stabbed in, made a new low, price went down, made it a lower low, but the RSI had already started trending up. There's a bullish divergence. This, invalid. And I love that I picked that up yesterday. It's a new understanding for me. Now, for fun, I quipped back. I said, I wonder if we change it to 64, or in this case 65 length, because that's, how long ago this was. And if there's still a bullish divergence there, does that count? Is that valid? And he didn't respond to that, but I don't know if that works. But either way, I'm going to keep it at 14 because out of the box settings, until I have an edge on something else is what I use. So yeah, that's the thing I learned yesterday. So if you're ever wondering, I do keep a trade journal. I learn new shit every day. And in 10 years, I'm going to look back at myself right now and say, wow, you were such a noob. And that's my goal. I want to keep learning, keep growing. So let's get back to the chat. Sushi and Solana are no-brainers, according to Jedi Hornet. You know what? I intend to agree. And that is why I started up my dollar cost averaging, because I don't want to be stuck in a situation where I'm like hyper trading everything and possibly missing out on some longer term, bigger plays that I just feel really strongly about. But I also don't want to sit through a 50% drawdown from here in any of those projects. So I put 1.8% of my portfolio into my SAM basket. That's like FTT, Solana, Oxy, Sushi, Hxro, what else? Basically everything, Maps, FIDA, Serum. I think there's like 8 of them. Everything that was on FTX that I can buy spot, that's sort of anything related to FTX, Solana, so 1.8% total. And on that note, what's interesting, I moved them over to Blockfolio because it's not the highest APY you can get on some of them. Actually, we should look at that. I put out a Twitter. Damn it. I said the boomer thing. I put out a tweet last night. Let's take a look. It's basically asking people where the best APYs are on those single staking. Let's see what the responses were. Because I think I'm at like 5.5% right now, which is definitely better, than I was getting in my Soleil wallet for a couple of days, my Solid wallet. Ray staking on Radium is still like 30% single staking. So I'm going to move my Ray over there today because whatever, that's like 600% more than the 5.5. Then someone gave some really good, helpful info on Serum. So if it's legit, I don't want to go to some third-party DeFi project that'll take my stake. Like that's just, then your risk goes up, right? I really want this to be like a set and forget bag. So I'll probably go do some staking over on Serum with Serum. Right on FTX, I can stake my Solana for like 10%. I didn't even know that. I'm an idiot. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to move it back. And then I am already staking FTT. And then apparently these sort of like, it's like 2 assets, but it's basically single staking. 26 and 14. So that's sort of my goal. And once I get set up in all of the most optimal places to hold these for probably a much longer term, like until there's just some FU mania where someone tells you it's going to take over the world and it's up thousands of percent, hopefully. And, that's when I'll go and unlock it and be like, okay, it's time to, extreme greed. Like definitely not before this says extreme greed. And hopefully even into extreme greed, I can wait a few months and get even more because I'm greedy. Extremely. So that's my thinking. These are my bags that I've just been slowly averaging into. And now I'm trying to optimize how I'm holding them. But hey, Blockfolio, that's kind of dope. It's simple. It's on my phone. And I almost like it more. But if I'm really thinking about holding them, I'm going to have to take the slightly higher APYs, whatever that is. It's worth it. It's free money. I don't say no to free money, even if it's like $100 over the year. Like, why not? Click through and do it. Yeah. So I'd be curious to know what you guys are doing. I mean, we always talk about have a plan, be in position. Don't let the shitty market put you to sleep, because it's so easy through this to just be like, okay, show's over, folks, sell my shit and I'll come back in a year. And you might be right. I know people have done that. And I have no doubt that, there's a good chance that maybe they're going to turn around and be like, see, I told you, RT, you lost money, not listening to what the chart was telling you. They might be right. I mean, look at the fucking Dixie. This thing looks like it wants to go bananas. I thought it was going to get rejected here, and it just keeps slowly squeezing up, and it's coming to a key level. So what does it do after that? Does the markets, the markets just give up? What do we got? The SXP today, SPY. Let's go see what the stonks are doing. This thing's about to make a new all-time high. God damn it. This is why people are like, imagine trying to do what I do through this. Back up in the short reload zone. Let's short it. Big dump. Okay, I'll wait for the short reload zone. Let's short it. Back up in the reload zone this week. Let's short it. Like, I've learned my lesson, and I've never once tried to short it, but I've like charted it. I don't even know where to short this freaking thing with any size. I don't really have like a leveraged stock account, but fuck, man. So when this dumps happen and then people come back up, it's like, we're at resistance. I'm like, dude, I don't think the S&P has resistance. Not in my lifetime. Like, when was I was born? Let's say the weekly. When was I born? Jesus. Back here. I was born back here. So yeah, okay, tech bubble, 2008 crisis. I wasn't really trading back then. But like in my lifetime as a trader, resistance does not exist. COVID anomaly aside. And even then it was like, what COVID? So no, I'm not trying to short this. It's going to be really interesting to see what the Dixie does here. It just looks, it's like on bearish divergence. It looks tired, but it just won't fuck off. So if this does break out up here, that's probably going to really strengthen the bear case on Bitcoin. That might be our puke to new lows, and it might last a while. If Bitcoin puked to new lows as this rolled over, that would make my life so much easier. I'd be so much more confident going like heavy spot in just everything. But who knows? I don't want to get too caught up in like, here's what I'll do big here. Here's what I'll do big there. There's just too many things to look at. One thing I feel really comfortable with, and I maybe just need to like simplify my life right now, is just having low 30s spot Bitcoin. And it's not like, am I going to hold it? Am I going to go here? Nothing else matters. I'm just buying it to sell it when it touches the 200 moving average. Again, I just think the probability is super high that one day when these two meet again, it will be higher than 32. I could be wrong. That would be a bad trade if I was wrong. I'd be like you lost the trade. But if you just look back historically, which I guess we can do right here, and I did this in the newsletter a few weeks ago. This was based on the death cross, right? So the idea of like when that death cross happens. Let's see. Let's get the old 50 on there. Which again, I don't trade the death cross. I think it's a lagging indicator. I like to be a little more active. But once it happens, price is usually pretty depressed. It's not too great. Selling there is usually a terrible idea because it comes up and you get that test. Now this doesn't look like it touched the 200, but the wicks did. Remember, this line chart is candle body closes. So the wicks did come in. So that was a trade. Right here, death cross actually happened on upward price momentum. So this was the one case that if you waited for price to contact it again, you were actually pretty close. I think it was something like 8% below. So you lose 8% here. You make like 38% here. And then when this death cross happened, price was all the way down here, already trending back up on the daily. And when, if you just waited to sell here, you made like 38%. So, all other bullshit aside, it's kind of like maybe why I'm so stuck in my ways here. So could be wrong, but I feel like that's a simplified way to look at it. Put all the noise away and just say, after this death cross, what are the odds are, especially because I'm even getting a discount to when that happened, what are the odds are I can sell it at that retest somewhere higher than this in the next 6 months? I think so. Just the ebb and flow, the yo-yo nature, the physics of the market. So let's get back to the chat here. You can get FTT on any of the dexes. Yeah, it's ERC20. It's around. There's liquidity. It's not huge liquidity, but for anything under like 6 figures, you'll be able to move it around without too much slippage. I want that FTT burn like Rob was talking about. Yeah, FTT burn. They do it. They did it recently. I think a few million FTT were burned, at least. I have become DCA pilled. Thank you, RT. Thanks, man. Yeah, no, look, I've never DCA'd in my life until like this week because, and again, not with all of my portfolio. I'm too active as a trader. I hear about opportunities from time to time where I'm just like, ooh, gotta ape, quick. And I don't want to be in 20 bags that I've been DCAing, like 10% of my portfolio I plan to just have in like a mindless apey, DCA, just keep it to the side, don't care. The rest I'm managing a lot more actively, but let's see. I mean, that 10%, and the key is having it so small that like if we do draw down, another 50%, if we do go into a long-term bear market, I'm not wrecked and I don't feel the need to sell. That's the key, right? A lot of people say I'm going to DCA into a downtrend. And then the downtrend doesn't end until they puke their positions because they're so convinced that they've fucked up. And it just, that final dump just is too much. And that's what happens, I think, to a lot of people who DCA with their whole bag or with just too much in general. So I'm doing it with just small potatoes. Please feel like they need to start playing on Sol. Yeah, okay, I will say this. SolScan, they've really upped their game. Their whatever you call it, Explorer. We're not done, but I'll come back here because I miss seeing you guys. Their Block Explorer used to be really kind of vague and hard to read, and it just wasn't what we know, right? We know Etherscan, then BSC kind of copied them, and that it's almost like it's become the standard now, and if you don't follow it, you won't take off. That's probably what they realized. That's how I feel. And I went on SolScan yesterday when I was sending my shit over to Blockfolio, and I was like, oh, they fixed it. Like they've cleaned it up. So visually, it's very similar to Etherscan. So good shout to them. Because I saw some people bashing like, Solana's so unusable. It's not user-friendly. I'm like, bro, it's like very beta right now. And they're not stupid. Like anything we know about SBF and what they're building, and, even if he's not directly building Solana, he's in there. It's going to be intuitive. It's going to be money well spent, all that investment, I think. And they're not idiots, right? If it's confusing and their feedback is we don't understand, they'll fix it. I'm sure of it. So they have. SolScan is dope. It's very similar to ETHScan. I can understand it. And I'm sure there's even another echelon we need to get to, because Etherscan looks like friggin' gibberish to a lot of people. The normies that we want coming out here to pump the bags. So Paul Young Jr. Yeah, I got out early today just to kind of hit the road running. Sometimes, sometimes I'm like mentally checked out by like 2 p.m. on a Friday, and then I'm like, oh yeah, but I got to linger for the stream. So I thought I'm going to try it out a little earlier in the day today, and see if we can just get a little preview for the weekend. So yeah, what else we got in the chat, guys? I'm really just in kind of hangout mode here. I've shared, I think, all that I can with Bitcoin without getting into over-analysis paralysis. We've got sort of a squeezy wedge. Now, look, I am also preserving capital for this possibility. Wherever this squeeze up goes, maybe it's done now. Maybe it goes a little higher, sweeps some of these highs over here. I agree with anyone who says like, well, that's 20K, that's too deep. But anyone who sits here and is like, oh no, dude, like that's just not how bottoms form. We need to go lower. We need that final puke. We're going to get everyone nice and long and frothy and bullish here, and then we're going to just finish it off. I agree with them. That makes sense. That fits a lot of things. So I'm not ruling that out. I have my dry powder, my primary dry powder reserves still sitting there. I'm not touching them. And that's an important piece here, because people say, well, what if it goes down? I'm like, well, I don't care, because I didn't touch those. If I was starting to like unload all my dry powder here, putting all my eggs in that basket, I would be at high risk of wanting to sell that, needing to even, because I want to buy a house next year. I can't afford to just watch everything go into a 2-year bear market, right? I've got a kid coming, right? So that dry powder reserve is absolutely only getting deployed in earnest if we dip somehow into like that shit. And that would be like, looking back, you'd be like, that was the end of the move. It'll be a lot more obvious, right? So in a weird way, I am front running, but there's 2 reasons why. A, we may not get that. B, we may get this first. So I feel like there's 2 potential trades up here, and I really, like, worse than I'm scared of this, I'm scared of having to decide whether or not to buy my crypto back up here because it looks like the bull market's back. And I say, well, I'm not going to buy resistance, and then it goes here. Well, I'm not going to buy resistance, and then it goes here, and I FOMO back in, and I'm a retard because I'm so bullish on this shit, and I just let myself have to buy back the highs. I don't know that that's going to happen, but that's why I suck at bear markets, because that's always what I think might happen. So be warned. I've been through one bear market, and I didn't do very well through it. I learned a lot of lessons. I said, I'm going to apply them this time. And for the most part, I did. I got very aggressive getting the fuck out around here. And I took a lot of profit here, and I took a lot of profit here, and I took a lot of profit here. So in that sense, I prepared myself for the bear. But now that we're into it, I definitely was a little bit early trying to get too bullish. I am, for what it's worth, short-term, mid-term bullish here. Oh! Oh no! Oh! Okay, I just got wrecked. I was not sharing the screen. I did a lot of drawing, guys, and I deleted it all. Do 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 do. Let's go back. Oh man, okay. Oh well. Damn it. Ah. I'm gonna blame coffee. I just did all this art. Classic. My bad, guys. That moment when you realize midstream for no reason at all, you switch back to studio mode. Yeah. Basically just saying, we could do that. And that's where I'm really getting frothy with my dry powder. But before that, we could absolutely, do something like that. And so there's really two trades that I'm watching for. By being kind of aggressive here on longs, I'd still like to get those range lows. Don't get me wrong. That's what I'm waiting for if I'm going to do any kind of leverage. But I think there's two opportunities here to be on the right side of this. And that's if we do this before we do that finishing move that everyone seems to be expecting. That's 13K. It's a little low, but you know what I mean? Or we just finish the fucking pullback here. And there's a lot of reasons why that would look obvious in retrospect. Bullish divergence, sliding in, losing momentum. Sellers not showing up on a break of range lows. On-chain metrics showing accumulation. Money pouring into the space like fucking mad. Billionaires talking about us and Busta Rhymes buying Bitcoin on the dip. It's not top things. I don't know. So looking back, it'd be like, oh, that was such a juicy dip. So I don't want to miss that. And I certainly don't want to be up here making decisions about when to buy back. And so I'm doing it here with some of my dry powder keyword. So, if anyone wants to slide up into my replies on Twitter, be like, you're so wrecked. I'd be like, well, the part that I bought back is a little bit, but, got that dry powder for a rainy day. And that's what keeps me sane. And that's why I took profit early and often. And then the funny thing is, like, I took profit so early and so often that by the time we got up here, I had kind of lost the flavor for it. I was like, well, classic, right? You're like, well, but in the end, came out okay this year, and now just want to be set up for the next one. So that's my thinking. I'm putting this up here for an interest sake. If that tags, what a fucking god tier GAN play, and it'd be nice because I'm actually trading it this time. But it's less of like a price must go here and more of like a, oh my god, let's see if it does. Because that would be taking back half of this down move in half of the time, which is one of his rules, something he looks at. Such a banana, yeah. Busta Rhymes tweeted out yesterday that after watching the show, the Jack, the Kathy, the Elon debate or whatever discussion, that he's like did some research after that and bought in. So he's like, now I'm looking into Ethereum. He's bought some Bitcoin already. So, it's people are like, well, it's different this time. It's not different this time. It is different this time. It is different this time. It already is. So even if you're scoffing at that, you're like, oh, everyone always thinks it is. It already is. If you're calling bear market right now, then this is a different top. We've never seen that. That's different. So if, and if you're saying, well, we've never come down for 3 months mid bull market, it's always been a lot quicker. So, it must be a bear market. It's not going to be different this time. I'm like, well, dude, if it's a bear market, it already is different. So it just is. It is different this time. Now, does that mean it's going to go to new highs? It's different this time, or it's going to, like, I don't know. But anyone who's telling you like it's always going to be the same, it's like, sorry, no, it's not. It's just not. The market's changing. The market is evolving. And people said that early 2018 and they got wrecked. They said, oh, institutions are coming. It's different this time. And they got wrecked. Cool. We could see that again. But objectively speaking, it's already different this time. So that whole idea of like it's going to be the same, well, sorry, it's not. Already isn't. There's a conversation about cryptocurrency in a different lens from different people. Constant. It is constant right now. Up, down, sideways. The headlines are no longer this like nascent or sort of off to the side thing. Like, oh, and in other news, Bitcoin just dropped at 40%. Like, it's just so good long term. So my powder is here in case I can get a bidder discount, but my active spot trading account is all back into Bitcoin here from like mid 31s. And let's look at the weekend forecast. What I'm watching for this weekend. There's two things. First of all, I feel like the more likely scenario, for what it's worth, based purely on the whole thing we talked about earlier, like where people are positioned, there's a lot of people that are saying, okay, now I'm ready to buy the dip. Just like after things got really bearish, they said, okay, as soon as we get back up to my portfolio all-time highs or even close to it, I'm ready to sell. Well, we never got that because that was the general sentiment. It was too strong. Everyone was front running that. It just never made it back up. Similarly, I think that could play out here, which is why I just kind of set those buy stops and said, fuck it, my spot's back in. If I'm going to leverage long, I don't really feel comfortable doing it on this 4-hour SR flip, simply because I don't want to have to puke that position and then not be willing to long it again here. So the only leverage long I'm looking for or willing to take if we roll over this weekend, maybe even into the Monday open, is something down in this kind of area. It's a big area, so it's not very helpful, but that's the idea, that we could, and then there's an interesting long there. But on the 4-hour, I would not be shocked at all if this just acts as support and we chill, and then just take off for our next leg. Now, the fib extension of that first impulse is up here around 35. There's some really nice stops to take out up and into that. Obviously, 36, we've got the range EQ lurking with that little front run that we had. So there's a lot of this sort of ABCD harmonic that I'm seeing potentially. And every time someone tells me that that's just hopium and all this stuff, like I'm almost feeling a little better about it. It's one thing I've stopped doing is letting like other people's sentiment or ideas dictate what I'm going to do. Just be aware that I can be wrong, and then whatever happens. Now the ABCD harmonic, is basically like right on point for now with that fib extension. So that's interesting. It doesn't always happen that way. I like that. I like that alignment. 35K, highs. Kind of like, well, it was back here, but VPR value high. Well, that's very like relative. It's very subjective. But depending on how far I zoom out, it'll change, right? But look, yeah, actually, that's kind of sick. Oh, okay. Well, that's compelling. I mean, we're back into value. And it looks apparently like no matter how we spread it, the value being like 70% of the volume in this range was traded between 31.5 and 35. And it looks like even when I zoom in and zoom out, that stays fairly constant. And so there is one setup that I don't have fully ironed out and I played with for a while. And it's the idea that, and I might be butchering this, so just bear with me if you're from TRI and you're like, that's not the hogue. But it's just this idea that once price trades below value, that's the like shaded part here, and then breaks back into value and closes a few candles, that he found, and this was, I think, based on like oil futures in the 80s on like 15-minute time scale. So just be aware of that. This is total conjecture. But it was the idea that once you break back into value and you start trading there, that price will trade to the other end of value 80% of the time. So when I see that, and then I see this fib extension, and then I see this ABCD target, which is arguably not great. I'd love to see like a low come in, and then we do an ABC from that. But for a forced drawing, I don't know. I'm kind of selling myself. There's not much else I can do. My spot account is long Bitcoin, so I don't have any more dry powder in that account. I bought it all. SNX. Okay. Yeah, SNX, I'm not going to lie, guys. I bought a fat bag of SNX today. Oversized. No, sorry, not today. The other day. I've never held it in my life. But I really like the setup. And I kind of aped in. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. I bought a lot. And it's more like, okay, so if my broader thesis is that we trend back up, maybe that's the end of this correction in general. Alts certainly look more like nearer the end of a down move versus like Bitcoin obviously still has some room to go into the 20s if you want to be technical about it. Absolutely. But, these have done their full correction. And the bottoms do take a long time to form. So this isn't like necessarily like, ooh, trade to the new highs, but it's like definitely, can I get up into this short reload zone for a multi-week squeeze? That's the trade idea. So we come down into this weekly support. There's bullish divergence. Was there on here? Not really. Not really. Yeah, I'm sure there was. There definitely was some time frames where there was a nice bull div on the RSI, but not the daily. So I'm not going to force it. But the MACD showing signs that momentum is generally slowing. Flips. Okay, cool. We got a breakout, new higher low breakout, nice volume coming in. Might have been news driven. Looks kind of like sudden. It's like, whoa, what happened? Bullish market structure confirmed. And then you're just like, okay, can I get a retest of that? And that's what we got in the reload zone, Wyckoff check kind of stuff. All of this coming off of weekly support. So when we're down here, I get, I was like, fuck it. And then, of course, what Messi was saying about the L2, and that was one of the things holding them back, and they needed like faster and lower fees. I was like, yeah, I can get spot long here pretty comfortably for the midterm. Again, not, I fall asleep at night stress-free because of the dry powder that I have in that Nexo account collecting that interest. Whether or not that's the best place to stake a stable, let's not get into that. It's just where I've chosen. And that's a really critical piece to all this. I'm going to say I aped in. I'm not 90% exposed to this right now. But it is a big bag. It's not even, I was going to say, it's my biggest bag. It's my biggest new bag. Sushi's another one. I don't think sushi has quite as sexy a setup, but it's like is this the examples we were writing about, like what you can look for if you want to just not DCA and just kind of wait for a breakout? Get rid of that muck. You want to see some rising volume down here, of course. But sushi's just another one I've just been hearing way too many times recently. And it's the same coin and all that stuff, so it's part of my basket. So I did add some here around like 7 something. And then Convex. It's actually breaking out a little bit today since my buy. I don't have any comment on this, like as far as inflation goes, and it's getting minted by CRV whales. I don't know like how low it wants to go. I feel like it's gonna be one of those bleed out tokens, to some ridiculous level. But staking is decent. I had some USDC in a wallet, and I was like, oh, fuck it, I'm going to put it into Convex, CVX. I'm going to stake it, and I'm going to forget about it. Because like I said, if I'm going to stake in something like that, where it's like, ooh, 30% APY, but you're getting paid in a coin, and the coin base and like the base asset that you're putting in could go down 70%. So what does that APY even mean? It's useless. I generally stay away from just parking money into staking stuff. But this is like all the rest of the stuff we talked about today. If we're going to kind of continue the bull, then I see some buy volume picking up. We're kind of down low in the range, whatever you want to call it. But just be aware that some people think this thing hasn't bottomed yet, and I don't entirely disagree with them. I mean, that, waiting for new lows or a reclaim of that level would be pretty smart too. So I started a bag here at just around $3. And so it was nice to see that it's up like 20% today. But it's a write-off. Like it's going to sit in there staking for whatever it's going to be. And, maybe someday we get to double digits. I don't know. I don't really understand how Curve works. I need to learn more about it, but I did pick some up and I'm staking it in. So far, it's a nice community. Yeah, Spinoza, I like that take. If SNX is like an exchange coin, then I'm in the right place. Did they have burns at all? I love a good coin with those burns. Like BNB, one of the things I loved about it back in like August, September 2017 was I was like, holy shit, they're burning it indefinitely. So like in theory, if they stick around for 20 years, they could just be like, only a few million left. I mean, God, they're just going to keep buying and burning off the market. Like that's a really fun investment thesis or dynamic. So Okay, Woo does some serious token birds. That's actually one that I was ready to FOMO into at one point this year, and I have not looked at in a while. Let's go check out Woo. Woo, woo, woo. Yeah, I mean, Woo's in a dip. It's in that dip like everything else. Nice to see. I mean, as someone who doesn't own any, this is what I want to see on an asset that I kind of want to have some of. Because I remember, like, everything got shilled up at the highs, right? You go through Twitter, everyone's talking about my coin, no my coin, Shiba, my coin. Like, but this one actually had a very compelling story. I really liked this one's story. So as far as like we talked about earlier, the RSI bull div, this is where it's like, okay, you can only go 14 candles back, which is now my new rule, because Cold-Blooded Schiller made a very sound case, and I like it. So I've added that to my rule set. And this would have been a case where it's like, oh, price made a lower low while the RSI made a higher low, except it didn't. It made a lower low. So not quite the bull div that I would like to see to be part of a 3-part setup. Might just give this one some more time. Maybe there's another setup later. You don't have to have a bull div at every bottom. It's just that that's what I need to act. This is for the sake of having rules. Now, if I really want to, I could say, well, the MACD has one. MACD losing momentum on this down move, which is one of the good times. It's one of the times where the word losing actually means winning. It's winning the battle against the bears here, slowly but surely. Price keeps going down, but the velocity of that move is starting to slow. And go figure, it's right in the reload zone. It's what I look for. It's what we live for. So if I'm going to DCA for 10 years, well, that's aggressive, maybe 10 months, whatever time period I just want to be part of the next bull market into this coin, like this is probably an area I can start looking at that. Woo Trade Network. Am I on the right one? He said you're looking for Woo. Gamers launching later this year. John Schneider. Oh, Luna. Okay. You know what I picked up the other week when all the gaming tokens were going crazy? This is what I thought you were talking about. I picked up a little stink mount of this. I think actually right here. Like 10 cents. I don't know. Game E. Anyways, that's not what you were talking about, but I did pick up like $500 worth of this, like a relatively dusty little bag that I can see if that'll turn into 100x someday. Only because someone on stream actually mentioned this, that a lot of the gaming tokens were pumping, and then there was this website, which offhand I can't remember, but it's in the Discord, and it had a list of all these, like, you know, Axie Infinity, and this one company was focusing on them and a few others, and this was one of them, so I don't know. Probably nothing, maybe someday. But that's not what you're talking about. You were talking about Luna. So you're telling me Luna looks interesting here. Let's take a look. Anyone catch Teen Executive over on Up Only TV yesterday? I thought that was a great episode. It was pretty funny. Kid is a riot. And I like to stay to the end to listen to Ledger talk Canadian. It was interesting. And Lone NK, what's up? Over on TradingView. Good to see you. Welcome. I think I need to go see Ledger and give him some Canadian accent coaching lessons. Clearly has not watched the Trailer Park Boys. If he had watched Trailer Park Boys, he'd have that. Oh, how's it going there? You know, we go down there, get some coffee there, bud. Like, just the greatest East Coast Canadian shit. It was good fun. But yeah, great episode. If you haven't checked it out, do it. Axis short setup again. Ooh, okay, you know what? Let's do it. Let's go look at that. Luna looks great. Luna looked good here when Mike Novogratz was talking about, you know, the pump. And then all I could think was like, I missed it and it's late. I did not go back and aggressively buy the dip, but I'll tell you what, that's going to be the local reload zone. Bing. It's the kind of shit. This is the problem, right? It's so, what I'm struggling with lately is having these preset. So I'm doing a lot of buying on like the bounces, which is not really the market for it, right? If you really do buy the local reload zones, you can get those premium entries and even just be selling the bounces and just play the chop. But yeah, Luna looks great. You know, volume picking up, breakout sort of thing. Could see continuation there. Let's go check out Axis. Axis is the coin that, like, for a little while now, oh, it is up at the double chaos. And I'm glad you brought it up because the liquidity is so high or so strong. And obviously the use case, you know, the fundamentals, the users and all that. And then I sat there the other week. Obviously, I tried to short here. It actually was in decent profit, and then I didn't close it, and I got washed. And then I fell asleep. Not like, oops, I fell asleep. Like I went to bed right here. I went to bed right here. What is it? It was 9 p.m. And I was like, yes, I'm going to go to sleep. And when we get up into the short reload zone in the morning, I'll short it or hunt for a short. And, well, it just did that like 2 hours later overnight and then was like all the way down here before I woke up. Classic. And then I just kind of stopped paying attention to it. And then obviously through the pump yesterday, I was like, damn, that was probably something that was pretty easy to get on board with. I'm sure there was a level that I could say in retrospect was a good long. Pump chaser zone, most likely. And, you know, not an easy trade if you're trying to like stop loss at the bottom of the PCZ, but there was a time to average in, and that's usually on the pump chaser zone. And then I just kind of left it. It was pumping again yesterday. I was like, fuck, you know, could have been trading all these fibs with this coin. But I'm glad you brought it up because we are up now into the level I was initially right here waiting for, which was that 887. It's not unheard of, but it's a pretty good location to be thinking about paying yourself at the very least. Like if I was loading up post bubble down here like that, you know, if I was loading up in this reload zone, like the chaos is where I'm getting paid. I'm getting paid here and I'm getting paid here. I'd be hard pressed to hold a long-term bag from this level. Even though fundamentals suggest this thing is super undervalued still. As a trader, this is a level where I get a little careful. So let's look at it. You know, what are we going to look at? We'd have to zoom in, see if there's any kind of like reasons to be short. Because I need a few reasons. I don't want to just be like, oh, price is up, better short it. I need divergence. I need location. So we're in the chaos PRZ number 2. So we have location to be thinking like, oh, that's the target. This actually looks pretty good here. If I wanted like 2 hours ago to be thinking like risk up against those highs. It's not like, oh, it has to go down here, but it's like, fuck it. If it does, it's got a long way down. And if it doesn't, I get 2.8% risk. Like I'm already profitable right here, like 3 to 1. Don't even need like a big shit the bed, but obviously, you know. So I don't know. A lot of people will scoff. They'll be like, well, why do you find the strongest looking asset during a time of weakness and short it? It's like, well, I don't know. It's super liquid. And everything goes up and down. If it shows me the setup, I'll take it. This little smackdown is at the very least going to kick it into a consolidation, I would expect. So if I really want to get scalpy, get into that 15 minute, which is low as I like to go when I'm day trading. I mean, I'll sometimes look at the 5 and 1 for fun, but I don't trade off them. And then we can get into this fib pong game, which at the very least is what we're going to see. I would expect, right? Bing, bing, bing. And then we'll have, you know, theoretically, wherever that goes down to, we'd have like a new fib, which is almost the same as the last one. It's a tight range. And then we'll see. Bing. And then it's either like, whoa, more, or it's like, whoa. So that's my thinking on it. I mean, it's certainly not time to be rushing in to make a big investment in it. Fuck. I think anyone could tell you that. Except for the holders. They'll probably be like, nah, it's a great buy. You know, where volatility and market physics and just whatever trading a plan go, this is just not the time to be like, this is where I want to deploy my maximum amount of capital. Up at that chaos PRZ after a 700% run in 2 weeks during a pullback. I don't know. Not buying it. So yeah, this is where your shit gets real greasy, right? You start looking at these like 786s, 886s up against the highs. Your risk gets so tight. And you know, and what'll chop you up, and this is why we have to manage risk, is you can get this, and then it goes this, And then you try to short it again here, and it does this. And that is what we call a rising wedge. And it just chops the shit out of you up until you give up. And then it's like, So careful with this. It's not as easy. It looks very easy in hindsight. But if you run into a rising wedge, which is sometimes a bearish formation, and you try to run this kind of stops against the highs, like it can get ugly. So 0.5%, 0.25%, 1% risk kind of stuff. And we might have ourselves a nice short this weekend. We'll see. But I'd like to see the reaction here, risking missing the whole friggin' thing. And then we'll see, maybe I can get into there. Something like that. Long-winded AXS. But like, fuck, man. I'll tell you why I really want to take that risk. Like, I don't want to take a big risk. But now that we've talked about it, the volume's strong. I don't know. The fundamentals are strong. It's more just like the potential for it is so good that I just almost want to lose $1,000 or whatever it is just to find out. Sounds silly, but it's like, God, it's basically like a 20-to-1 trade. If you're really getting in greasy there up against those highs tight, you could be looking at, you only have to be right on those like 1 in 10, 1 in 20 times to make good money. But it may be early. Let's see. I mean, this isn't what you want to see if you're thinking short. I'd love to see those new highs come in on like really weak volume, but this is almost like a renewed bull. I'm not convinced that I want to short this, all things considered. And that's the cool thing. Like maybe, and this is another thing that happens to me a lot with trading is, I'll just miss something and I'll look back like, oh, that was great. Why didn't I at least take a little shot? It's because I'm always thinking maybe like too big. I'm like, I need to risk 1,000. I need to risk 500. It's like, fuck it, risk $50. Pad your stats, bro. Get an impossibly small position on just to take the trade, just to see the setup. And then you get stopped out. You don't care. You make the money. You don't care. It's like $50 either way. Like, maybe just put that action in the market just to stay greasy, it's almost like a paper trade, but you got a little skin in there. So you're like, made $80 last week. Like, maybe I should be doing a bit more of that micro trading. And that's actually what I was talking to someone online about the other day. He says, oh man, like I'm so chicken shit. I get my setups, they come in and I don't take them. I said, just reduce your size. Take size off. If 1%, maybe you made a killing in 2021. And so suddenly risking 1% of your account feels like a lot. You haven't adjusted to that new amount yet. Maybe, you still live in your basement. You don't want to risk 5K, 10K on a trade because even though it's 1%, that's still like, what you used to work 2-3 months for. I get that. And so sizing down to something ridiculous, like a 0.25%, or fuck it, pulling money out of the market so that 1% is a manageable, like, do you, but taking size off, is going to fix a lot of that indecision and missing out on otherwise decent setups. Look at this fib extension, man. That's the other way to look at this. I say man, like lady, y'all, whoever y'all are. We had the fib extension here. Kind of got front run for a little dump. This was a big move. If we take an extension from that, let's see how that aligns with the fatty chaos. Because this is the ultimate chaos, right? You have that whole consolidation. So in another view, this is probably what I'm looking for. Something in that area, which based on this volume that's coming in on this next wave up, I think I just talked myself out of getting too greasy here trying to short. It's a little bit early. Although, God, look at the RSI though. Oh, but it's more than 14 candles. Can't use it anymore. But it did not follow. So let's see. I'm not in a huge rush to short this, especially with everything we've talked about with, Bitcoin, Bitcoin RSI maybe is a good marker for general market momentum, and it looks like it wants to break out. What I'd like to see, obviously, is a proper bit of market structure on the other side, that's likely a week or two away. And that would really be a better signal. By then, if that's going to happen, we'll see a lot of momentum in the market by the time that happens, but at least we'll know it happened. Axis looks a bit ridiculous right now. Like, it looks like it just wants to steamroll the whole world. And apparently funding is super negative. So, yeah. Axis will continue to moon. Sounds like euphoria. Yep. Yeah, it might. I mean, the fundamentals, the actual fundamentals, like actual users, actual revenue, assuming the treasury is still holding on to all of the AXS they're receiving as part of the game, that's just a supply crisis, aka any buyers need to buy and sellers are few and far between. Apparently the funding rate is very high still, like super negative. Let's go look. I'm going to do it off screen because it's my Binance account, but let's see. Yeah, minus 0.22. That's pretty high. Like shorts are paying a lot of money to stay short right now, aka they are dominating the market. In other words, that can act as rocket fuel, right? It could be that some really big whales are taking shorts here and it's going to make it harder to move up. It could be that that's your rocket fuel because as they close and cover their shorts, because they're getting squeezed, they have to buy. And that's where you get that proper FU extension. Because I'd say the most intense, like the most valid chaos is actually right here. The ones I had written on here were drawn from this inner range. But if you really want to zoom out and take the whole thing, which is generally a stronger signal, like saying the weekly is better than the 4 hour for direction, then, and God, if we just scoop up here on exhaustion, ooh, short gets even better, right? So I think I'll take patience here. Like I always say, right? I can be on point with my ideas. I'm so often just a little bit early and then lose all flavor for the setup before it really comes in. Yeah, so Jedi says he already sold, so he can definitely say he's not euphoric. Maybe he's depressed. He says access will continue to moon. That's the feeling, right? Once you sell out of a good position and it's moving, you're just like, fuck, now it's definitely going to the moon. Buy back your entire bag at $30 and tell me how you feel about it going to the moon. I feel like you'll flip there and you'll be like, oh God, it's going to dump. The emotion of the market. Hopefully you made a good killing on that, Jedi. It's been hot. We are getting up past, oh man, I got to get going. Got a meeting coming up pretty soon here and got a few things I got to prep for that. So final questions. Fire them off. I'm going to give it 3 minutes because I kind of snuck up on you there. We are just over the hour. Bitcoin not in a rush to break out here today. Let's go. Where's my fresh BTC? Well, yeah, I think I can get rid of this squiggly. Already failed. That was more just like to illustrate the thinking of my setup yesterday. Didn't come in. That's the way she goes. Can't lose money if you don't trade. So I didn't really get much action yesterday. Which is fine. I'd much rather a boring day playing some video games on the side or taking calls, whatever it is, while not getting my setups triggered versus like, buy, oh no, sell, buy, like FOMOing in and out of price action as it happens. You did a 3x. That's not bad. 300% gain in a market where everything was kind of drawing down heavily. That's pretty dope. Rune I can't comment on. They've had 2 exploits in as many months, and I feel like that's at the very least just carelessness on their part. I feel like they're doing interop multi-chain stuff, so I'm sure there's lots of vectors for attack, but like, get your shit together, guys. You're dealing with millions of dollars. Yes, I'm sure you disclaimed it and said, this shouldn't have value, blah, 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 at your own risk. Yes. But like ethically, stop getting hacked. Audit everything. Run everything. Just take your goddamn time. It's not even like we're in an epic bull like where you get a rush. So I don't know. That's my off the cuff, uninformed commentary. But what do you do with dry powder that's equal to 5x my portfolio? Yeah. Well, I don't know. To be honest, my dry powder is like 1/3 the size of my current active portfolio. I was thinking about that today. I was reflecting on that today in the shower. And I realized that while I feel very comfortable with that amount of dry powder, if, just say everything goes to zero, well, I can slide in a down payment on a house. Like I'll limp into the finish line in that case. So I'm comfortable. But I might be in a lot of pain if I watch 3 times my sort of fiat reserves turn into dust, which is what I did in 2018. So, kind of balls to the walls here in a little bit. So what to do with dry powder that's equal to 5x your portfolio? There's lots of things, like DCAing with some small part of it, if nothing else, like as a pet project. That's sort of what I'm doing with the Sandbasket. I said, look, I'm so confident in what they're doing long-term funding wise, at least, that it's just going to be around. It's not like dollar cost averaging into like brand new shitcoins that may or may not have a team that's going to stick around. Like SBF's going to be around. Let's be real. Solana, FTT, FTX, they're going to be here at least for 5 years, whatever you want to say. I would think almost certainly. So can I start deploying things in super depressed moments of the market? I mean, of course it could get more depressed. But so I put aside that 10% just for that DCA plan, which will take months to fulfill. So you could start exploring chopping up your portfolio. So it's not like, I'm going to put all of this into a futures account and trade it. I'm going to put all this into spot and trade it. I'm going to put all this into DCA and do that. You could create mini indexes for yourself, mini funds. That's one idea. Again, if nothing else, just to like kind of gamify your experience, track the data, most importantly, so that maybe in a year or two you learn like, my futures account sucks. I actually just lost more. My DCA bag did really well. My spot trading did really well. You could look at that. So I don't know. Hero bullish long term ? Somebody in the chat can answer that for you. I can't really talk about the Hero token. I work for Hero Games Inc. I work for Hero Labs. So, I mean, I have some, obviously. I think that goes without saying, but no real comment on the price of the token or any of that bullshit. But Hero Network is coming up soon. That's why we don't get Dan on the stream a lot of weeks, because he's off building. He's grinding hard. And I'm excited for that. I'm excited to see what that will look like built on Solana. Very cool. Hex is going to be what gets crypto banned in the US. Yeah, who knows? You know what? Oh God, I'm trying to wrap up here, but I did watch some really cringe content this morning. It started off my day. It started off like, I hate this. And then it turned into like, ha ha ha, this is actually kind of funny. But it was Richard Hart and Alex Saunders arguing, fighting even on Richard Hart's stream about Hex. And the funny thing is, both of them made interesting points. I just thought, like, for two guys they seem like they're doing pretty well for themselves. Saunders saying he's running the biggest paid group ever, like 6,000 subscribers. I'm like, guy's probably doing pretty well with that kind of income. Richard Hart, obviously the founder of Hex, gotta be, he's got like $1 million of watches he likes to remind us about sitting in his back thing. But like, they spent a lot of time just fighting. But I did have a good laugh. Richard Hart's pretty funny, I gotta say. He's a funny guy when he starts just ripping into him. Alex's point, just to clarify, so you guys don't have to go watch this. Alex's point was basically that the market cap is here. Market cap is here, so it's very high, whatever it is, 40 billion, whatever. And then the volume is like 50 million, which is not nothing. And his point was not that no one can sell, but that if the majority of the people that are sitting there saying how rich they are decide that they want to realize that after a certain amount, let's just say the first few billion is sold, that market cap will sort of collapse. And he's not terribly wrong, right? There's not a $40 billion bid sitting up at whatever price it's at right now. So there's a bit of smoke and mirrors going on. And Richard Hart's response to that was like also kind of valid. He's like, okay, well, Satoshi's wallet, Genesis wallet, whatever, has 1 million Bitcoin sitting in it or whatever it does. Although I did look for that and I couldn't find it. So I used to think that too, but I actually don't know of any wallet that has 1 million Bitcoin sitting in it. But his point was basically like, yeah, like there's a huge amount of Bitcoin, 48% or whatever, sitting in certain wallets. And if they all decide to sell, then the market cap of Bitcoin will collapse too. So I don't know. It was a little cringe. It was a little funny. But don't watch it. Spend your day doing more positive things than watching two big names fight over things. If you bought into Hex early and you're staking it and you're making money, great. Love making money. Power to you. I am not touching it. You know, if it dumped 70%, like he says it has a few different times, I might actually just snipe a little bit in there because, I don't know, it's probably just going to go up. Ponzi's tend to go up pretty fast, pretty early. But yeah, no, very cultist vibes, eh? Like sitting there with the whole mock-up. But hey, maybe he's a really nice guy. I haven't learned enough about him except for that one stream, which left me wanting more out of life. Scams pump the hardest. That's the thing, right? You know, whatever it is very Ponzi-rific. It's like this whole, it's a savings account and this and that. But at the end of the day, they work great when they're going up, and when they go down, you have all those penalties, for withdrawing early. People will start to pay those if they think that the show's over, and it may crater and then it may come back, but it's just not really my thing. Except unless I find it early, which I didn't. If I found it early, I'd probably be like, I could take care of this. I could totally try to make money on this. But up 380,000% from the lows, won't be me. I punted money into Pulse Chain. Full disclosure, I punted a little bit in. Hey, I'm all for speculating. Being first is important. But I don't expect to see anything back from that. Not to say I don't think I will. I'm just I'm setting my expectations low. That's how I sleep when I do things like that. I didn't go crazy big, but, couple bucks, because it's just interesting. And after Rob on Wednesday, he's like the guy who told him he was super bullish on AVAX this year, like back when it was, before it launched. It did well. It did really well. It went from like $3 to 70. So when that guy comes and slips in his ear and he's like, oh, this Pulse Chain thing, I actually think it's probably going to do pretty well or whatever. That's a second layer of like me hearing about it from different people that I'm like, fuck it. I'm going to punt a little bit into that. So we'll see. There's a saying, fish rots from the head. Yeah, Jedi Hornet, I don't doubt it. And I'm not going to get into like X good, Hex bad, Richard Hart nice, Richard Hart mean. Like, it's just, he's a dude doing his thing. Watch, decide what you think. He makes some good points. And if someone says he's super cringe, I could be like, I could see that. But like, I don't know. I don't know the guy. Maybe he's really nice in real life, but only mean to Alex Saunders. Who knows? I am not buying any, though. I'll find other ways to run the account up. I punted dust into it just out of curiosity. Topher, that's basically what I did too. Yeah. And so he says, how do you buy Pulse? I'm not telling you. I will not walk you down that ramp. If you want to come and, jump off the deep end with me, man, you got to go do some research. Come into the Discord and ask around. I'm sure you can find someone that'll help you out. But just be careful. Definitely don't go Googling it, because I'm sure there's like 10 Pulse coin scam sites out there trying to get you hard-earned money. Hate giving anything to Richard Hart. Yeah, don't. I'll tell you one thing. I think it's kind of cool if this actually happens the way they say, where it's like you're actually just donating to medical research. Like if like the SENS or whatever it is, if that's legit and like the whole thing they're doing is basically just creating a clone and like the value will either come or not, but all the deposits you make are actually just going off to medical research. That's pretty dope. If it's true. Can't guarantee it is, but I like that idea. But that's also like people are like, oh, it's a cultist. Like maybe that's how that goes, where it's like, yes, it is all for this good thing, but who knows? Life extension. Yeah. And I'm all for that. Ray Kurzweil, Singularity is near, working on AI over at Google, head of engineering. Ray Kurzweil, if you haven't heard of him, check him out. Check him out. That was very Canadian. I'm into that kind of stuff. Living forever research. I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility. But check out Ray Kurzweil, 2008 documentary. I think it's called... No, his book is called The Singularity is Near. Transcendent Man is the show. It's a documentary. It's old now, but it's pretty dope. So if you're interested, that's where I know about the whole living forever shit research. And I'm curious what they're doing now. It's been 13 years since I watched that. anyways, guys, have a wonderful weekend. It's Friday. It's sunny. Let's see what the weekend price action does. If we drop down into the low 30s again, I'm going to be thinking long unless something happens or it looks really ugly. If we break up here from 32, that looks really good. And we'll just watch to the left to see all those highs get swept. 35's next key level on Bitcoin. And in between that and this, let's just manage risk, guys. The bull, maybe it's back, maybe it's not. It's not quite time for me to go all in, and nor is it time for me to be in pure cash. We're in the mid. We're in the midpoint, guys. Have a great weekend. And whatever you do from now and then, as always, make sure to play from a position of strength. Take care.